Thank you everyone so much for joining us. Today we have Mike Hill from Tacoma Public Utilities, and we're going to be talking about how Tacoma's Citywide Kiosk Network promotes access and convenience. So thanks, Mike, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's our agenda for today. A little bit of housekeeping before we get started. I want to encourage everyone who's on the call today to submit any questions that you have using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. And feel free to use your full name. If we don't get to all the questions on air, we'll follow up via email to make sure we get those answers for you. And we'll save all the questions till the end of the talk. So we'll kick it off with some quick introductions and then dive into Tacoma Public Utilities and the Citybase solution, as well as some of the solution results and benefits. And then, as I mentioned, we're going to save all of your Q&A for a lively discussion at the end of the talk. So to introduce Citybase, our technology helps people find, apply, and pay for public services and helps staff manage those interactions. We work with U.S. cities, counties, states, and utilities for hassle-free payments and digital services that customers access via web, mobile, kiosk, and point of sale. So Mike, I will hand it over to you to introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you. Well, good morning or afternoon, depending upon where you're located. So again, I'm Mike Hill. I'm the Assistant Manager of Customer Services at Tacoma Public Utilities. I kind of run the business support side of operations, so change management, project technologies, training, contracts, all of that makes sure that our frontline facing employees can serve our customers to the best of their ability.
Great. So to dive into the solution, can you give a high-level overview of what you guys have in place with Citybase today?
Sure. So as you can see on the screen, there's a sample of the kiosks that we have. We have several of them, or many of them, scattered throughout our our service territory. And I shouldn't say scattered, I should say strategically located. We have two kiosks that are in our current payment center, our lobby. One is indoor and one is outdoor. It's located in a kind of a hut, we call it, but it's climate controlled, enclosed, and it's available 24/7 to our customers. And then we have 11 other kiosks that are located throughout our service territory in local grocery stores that we've partnered with. We are in the process of adding another service onto our kiosks that we're partnered with one of our other city departments. And we're also going to be bringing on an additional kiosk that we're going to be placing at our city hall.
And as you mentioned, they're not scattered, they're strategically placed. So
strategically placed.
Yeah, here's the map of your coverage area, right?
Yeah, so as you can see, we do, this is from our webpage. We do make sure that customers have access to this, and we try to put the most recent hours of operation for each one of those locations so customers can make a trip that's convenient for them.
Great. So backing up to before you had this network of kiosks, I know that you decided to issue a request for information or an RFI before partnering with Citybase on these kiosks. Can you discuss what you were trying to determine with that RFI and what you found out from it?
Sure. So at the time we issued the RFI, we were trying to determine if kiosks were the best solution for our situation. So when I came on board, we had a fleet. So Citybase is our third generation of kiosks. When I got here about 6 years ago, we'd already had kiosks in place for 10 years prior. We'd had 2 generations. We were nearing the end of life for our kiosks that we had. We had partnered with a previous vendor who, at the time we had entered the contract, we were assured that the chassis that we had, the kiosk frame itself, could be upgraded with new components and features throughout its life cycle, and we wouldn't have to go through the big bang process of purchasing another system. When it came time for our first refresh, we were told that they really aren't supporting the kiosk environment anymore, and it wasn't in their future roadmap. And so if we wanted to be supported, they could re-engineer parts for us, but the cost that we were provided was about, I'd say, 3 to 4 times what we were quoted initially. And at that point, it became, financially responsible for us to say, okay, things have changed. Let's go out and take a look. Let's just send a question out to the marketplace. Here's what we're trying to solve. We want our customers to be able to make payment at, cash payments in places that are not our lobby and convenient to them. So we sent that out and we got a number of responses back. We saw that, we got places such as Western Union, PayNearMe, several different kiosk vendors. But really what it came down to is we did some financial modeling, and based on factors that are specific to how we operate, which is in the state of Washington, we cannot pass along charges to customers to make payments. So those were all internal to us. We had to keep those charges. So since we had a network that was already in place that could support taking payments, we partnered with Citybase because they were able to meet our need of being able to use our existing structure.
And so how come the, Western Union or PayNearMe, why did you decide that that wasn't really the best solution? Was it the cost to you?
Well, it was a couple factors. One, it was the cost. The cost to make a payment that we would have to absorb was significantly higher than what we had to process it internally ourselves. And then secondly, it was the ability to place these kiosks or make a payment in a place that we felt our customers would feel safe and comfortable. Some of those locations that were in our service territory didn't really, we feel, met the need of what we'd want to provide to our customers.
Yeah, so the kiosk network, you could have more control over the customer experience on your end, from location to even just the payment workflow that they see. So
that's correct.
You guys do a great job with the branding and everything. So great. So given your experience with your previous kiosk vendor, what were you prioritizing as you sought a new kiosk provider, kiosks specifically?
So there were several things that we kind of had to prioritize as what we wanted. One is reliability. Our previous kiosks were at the point of failure, and we were having to cannibalize parts off kiosks to keep other machines going. So sometimes we had to shut down locations, we had to consolidate, and it wasn't providing the best experience for our customers. So reliability was one. Flexibility was the other. Our previous kiosk system, we had to actually drop wire and install modems to be able to have connectivity. So that got to be pretty expensive, going into a grocery store, paying to have all of that done, plus the downtime that you'd have to have. So flexibility and deployment was another issue another item that we wanted to solve. And then the other one was we wanted a solid partner that we could with a vendor. So we wanted someone who was committed to the kiosk space, someone that was committed to making sure that we were successful. And we found that in Citybase.
Great. Well, we're so glad. So now you do have Citybase payment kiosks, both at TPU's payment center as well as in locations across the city. How did you determine which locations to place your kiosks?
So we considered several factors. One, we looked at the customers that are currently using the kiosks. So what do they have in common? Are there areas in our service territory that have similar characteristics that could benefit from a kiosk? When are they paying? What time of day are they paying? Are they paying on a warning notice or a disconnect notice? Are they paying before the due date? And how are they paying? Cash, card, check? We took time to aggregate all the data that we have, and we came up with a couple different kind of common themes throughout our users. And one is the kiosks that get the most traffic were ones that have a higher concentration of multifamily housing that's around them. Higher percentage of the customers are unbanked or underbanked, and they pay in cash. The kiosk locations that have the most success or the most volume are those that are close to public transportation or transit lines. And then we also know that customers tend to pay after the original due date and closer to the date that the service is actually going to be disconnected. So we know that those were kind of the key factors in determining where we would get the most bang for the buck with our placement.
Yeah.
When we did this, we looked through our service territory. We partnered with Safeway grocery stores, and we contracted with them for a rental agreement. And the price of the monthly rental is based on how many payments are driven to their location.
you guys, I've said this to you before, you were really ahead of the curve on that. You're looking at both of your coverage area, of course, but also really crunching the numbers of who's paying in cash, looking at your customer base and who would benefit the most from having easy locations to pay, particularly in cash, particularly, maybe after business hours, so they don't have to take off time from work if they're paid hourly. So I think that's awesome that TPU did that. That's a service also that Citybase provides some of our kiosk partners, crunching some of their usage data, as well as helping to recruit locations, whether that be businesses or, public places like a public library, for instance. So that's great that you guys were already in that mindset when you were thinking about your next generation of kiosks. So, you located the locations. Can you talk about what the rollout process was like for the kiosks, especially for the ones that were located around the community?
Okay, so for us, it was almost like and we use this a lot, it was almost like a military exercise. So for those of you who are not familiar with Tacoma and our surrounding territory, we service Joint Base Lewis McChord up here in the Pacific Northwest. So we have a significant base of customers who are either former military or current active military or the family of, and we have a lot of employees who are former military. So there's a lot of precision in how we went about making sure that we were deploying these. And if you're new to kiosks, it's a bit different. I mean, if you're rolling out kiosks for the first time, that's great. I fully recommend it. But when you're going to a location that never had that feature before, there's a different expectation than if you're replacing a fleet that still reliability in some areas, you're still trying to replace them and minimize downtime. So we had 2 panel trucks that were each loaded with kiosks, and that was a route that was optimized for deployment. We'd have one team that would go through and remove the kiosk and then put it in the truck, and the other team would come right behind them and install the new kiosk. We did have Citybase staff and technical staff on hand that went with each of us, or went to each location and made sure that everything was up and running. And we did test payments after each install. And it took about 2 days to completely swap out all of our systems. And I think we got down to a point where I think we were downtime at each location was about an hour or 45 minutes. So when you look at the distance between locations and the minimal downtime, it was a very successful deployment, and it didn't cause impact on our customers.
Great. So as you mentioned, you have a lot of kiosks and business locations like grocery stores. How have you maintained the relationships with those community locations?
So I would say that one thing you have to keep in mind if you're deploying kiosk is that you've now introduced, you now have a new customer that's in the transaction. So you've got your business, plus you've got the end customer who's going to be making the payment, but then you also have your customer now who's the store that or the location you're partnering with. And we wanted to make sure that that's a relationship you have to be mindful about. So by installing the kiosks, we were able to set up a relationship with the stores that had been kind of frayed in the previous generation of kiosks that we had. You can imagine if you're a store employee or if you're a customer and you go to a store and the kiosk is down or it's not working, or if you have a question, your first thought is not, I'm going to call the utility and get a response. It's going to be who's around me right now from the store that would possibly be able to assist me. And store employees, they want to assist their customers. They don't want to just say, hey, not mine, you're on your own. So it's frustrating for them on their part. And so what we went back and looked at that is, and so one, we knew we wouldn't have to worry about the reliability issue because Citybase had a very reliable system that we're very pleased with. But we looked at how could we make that relationship with the store better. So we came up with tear-off pads that we've provided each location. So if a customer does have a question, it's a tear-off that has location and hours of all the kiosks in our service territory. Plus it has common questions and our number to contact us if you have any questions. So it allows the employee at the store to be able to respond to the customer, give them something tangible that they now have as a response, and lets them go back to doing what they were paid to do, and then also be able to give the customer a next step in what they need to do.
Yeah, that's great. So you're really have 2 customers almost, the business partners as well as your end customers who you're serving.
Correct.
What is some of the feedback that you've received about the Citybase payment kiosks?
So newer technology allowed us to do several things, but one of them was the customers really appreciated the reliability and they liked the improved flow of the screens. So much more intuitive, much more, not requiring, much more vernacular that was much more common to customers. They understood it. We were also able to add up different lookup methods for an account. So previously you'd have to have your account number with you, or we could send you a scan card that you could then use to scan and would bring up your account. We added information. We added the ability to look up your account by address and phone number, or phone number and address, account number. There's different variations that you can use. But they've also been very receptive of that. Plus the new features we've been able to add is emailing a receipt and texting a receipt.
Great. What are some of the trends that you found surrounding kiosk usage?
So prior to this generation of kiosks with Citybase, we had a declining user base, and we feel that was mostly due to reliability. We know that we had struggled for about 1.5 years trying to, keep our fleet running, trying to work out the solution with the previous vendor before we finally just decided to go a different route. And that kind of degraded the confidence level in the product we were offering. Once we installed the new kiosks, we noticed that the decline automatically stopped. It leveled out. And then slowly over billing cycles, we started to see new users that started to use the kiosk, and it did start to increase. We have gone from about 4.2% of all of our payments are made at a kiosk, and that was during the pandemic, which still is existing for us. But we're back up to about 5 to 6% now. 5 to 6% is historically where we've trended. But what we've noticed is that when our payments declined due to a moratorium on disconnections, the customers who were not paying were the ones who paid in cash. So all of the decline we had at those pay boxes were pretty much all cash payments that stopped coming in.
Can you talk a little bit about the cost savings that Tacoma Public Utilities have realized from using the payment kiosks?
Sure. So part of the business case to get this approved, we had to go through and show what the value was. So there's a lot of soft benefits to having the kiosks that are out in the area. But one of the hard benefits for us is that for a customer who makes a payment at a kiosk, it's about $2.28 a transaction. And that's great, because if you look at, for a customer coming into our lobby, when you add in the time, the full loaded rates and everything else, it's over $18 an hour. So for us, even taking a portion of the payments that come into that were in the lobby, sending them someplace else, makes it much more cost effective and much more beneficial for the utility.
Great. And just to underscore your point, that $2.28 is the cost for TPU to be providing that service, not a pass-through cost to your customers or anything like that.
Right. That is what we have.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. That's huge. So I know security is a big priority for you, of course, and particularly with the kiosk pay sites around the community. How have you addressed the physical security of your kiosks, and have there been any issues?
So there have been several break-in attempts, none of them successful, all of them caught on video. We've had to replace some hinges and locks for attempts that were made when the perpetrator tried to, or unhappy customer, I don't know how we want to classify them, attempted to drill out the lock. But even if they had got past those security measures, there's still the additional locks and security measures inside on the cash cassette. So I don't think at any time we were ever really in threat of losing any type of funding or any information. We also make sure that our kiosks are in the front inside the grocery store, but in the front, usually up near the service counter, customer service counter, or at the end of a checkout line. And then all of our kiosks have cameras on them from multiple locations. None where they can see personal information, but they can see who's, get a good face shot of who's at the location. We've then partnered with our courier. Then they conduct a physical inspection of the machine every day when they go to do cash pickup. and they look for tampering or any type of skimming or devices that have been may possibly added to the kiosks themselves.
Yeah, that's great. We're happy to hear nobody could get into those. I know we, make sure everything is very secure. And of course, in terms of information security, we don't store any cardholder data or any personal identifying information on the kiosks themselves. There's no, PC or anything within the kiosk that anyone would be able to access that sensitive data if they were able to break in, since the Citybase platform is all cloud-based and everything is done through our secure cellular network. So now that you've had the kiosks in place for a while, the Citybase kiosk, what are some of the attributes that you've decided you and your customers can't live without?
So let's see. The ability for our customers to make cash or check payments at a remote location, that's something we can't live without. The increased flexibility in deployment and location when we locate our machines. So the ability to just, if we identify another location that perhaps would be a better fit, it's basically unplugging the kiosk and moving it to that location. And if it has a cell connection, booting it back up, and within minutes, you're back up and running and can take a payment. The ability to place them in locations and hours that are beyond our traditional customer service lobby hours. And the new feature that we're most excited to take advantage of is MultiAgency.
Great, and that's a great segue. We'll pull up a visual here. So you're at the beginning of a new initiative right now with the City of Tacoma, where you'll be having some of their payment types on your machines. So the first payment type will be business taxes and licenses. This is an example of what the start screen will look like when someone comes to these kiosks to be able to pay either Tacoma Public Utility bill or another bill from the city. And so this is something we call either one-stop kiosks or multi-agency. So can you discuss a little bit how that will work and how you anticipate it impacting your customers and your operations?
Sure. So there's a couple things. So one, we're excited about this because this gives, it helps us expand what our citizens and our customers are able to do at a kiosk. Instead of having them do multiple trips to different locations, they now have the ability to go to this one location to pay business taxes and licensing fees. I'm sure everyone here attending today had some sort of obstacle or impact that they had from COVID. If you look at where our city hall is located, it's kind of located within the peninsula of where Tacoma is located. And to get downtown, if you're coming from outside the city, which our service territories do, and a lot of our businesses that pay taxes or vendors that have licensing, they would have to drive down into Tacoma to actually make the payment. And to do that, they'd have to go through one of the busiest intersections or highway intersections or interchanges in the state of Washington. So it was not a quick and easy process. By being able to add those multi-agency, add the city to our kiosk fleet. So any place where a customer can make a utility payment, they can now pay their business or license taxes. That's a benefit for them. It takes, if you have a vendor who's going off of a job site to go down to do that, you've now taken out an hour or 2 hours, depending upon location, out of their day that they can now focus back on their business. By also having multi-agency and then the city actually having a kiosk located downtown, that's another location where our customers can now make a payment and be able to, take care of two things at one time. So I think that's, where we're really excited about having this ability, is to add more, more users and more convenience to both customers and citizens. As far as operations is concerned, it's all, everybody's gonna have their own different operation kind of setup, but what we're doing is we use the same armored car pickup. All the payments will come through our customer service lobby, and then we will balance and settle those and allocate funds back to that city department as necessary.
Great. And of course, for anything that's card or check, again, that's all cloud-based, automatically reconciled to the correct department and whatnot. I think this is a great thing. And I think it's great that you also started with the utility, which is that most common interaction. So sometimes we call that like an anchor payment, because your customers are used to paying that bill probably every month. And so they build familiarity, they got used to the kiosk, they know where to find them, they're more familiar. And then now with these added services, they'll only have to pay for their permit, once a year, but they know that that service is available and how easy the kiosks are to use and where they're located. So that really helps build up adoption, and also, decreases the cost for promoting a new payment channel, since people are already familiar with this payment channel. So very exciting news. So what else is next for TPU? What are some of the projects you're working on now?
So we are in the process of rolling out for the utility an advanced meter network. And this allows the ability to offer different programs to customers. And one of those is going to be prepaying for electric service. So if you look at prepay programs and who generally benefits, it's a lot of the same customer or overlap in the demographics that we have that are users of our kiosk system. So we anticipate there's going to be increased need or increased traffic, and we will probably be needing to look at potential future locations for additional kiosks as we move forward. So we're in a traditional, for those who are not familiar with it, in a traditional service, we bill you for the month, and then you receive a bill and you have until X amount of time to pay it. With the new meter system, you can pay whatever you can in advance, and then it will be drawn down as your meter registers usage. And once you get to the end, it will shut off. You go back in, you can load up your account again and continue. A lot of customers like that because it prevents a lot of buildup of excessive debt. So, and they have more control over their particular usage. That's right now. We're going to expand it. That'll be by the end of this year. Next year, early next year, we're looking to expand that to our small, mid-sized commercial customers and allow them to have the same type of service. And then 2 years after that, we're looking to have prepay for all 5 services. So City of Tacoma, we bill for power, water, wastewater, sewer, and solid waste. So by being able to break that into a prepay service for all, that's going to be pretty beneficial.
Great. I think it's awesome how much you really focus on the customers and convenience for them. So what advice would you give to people who are considering payment kiosks and, maybe in particular organizations that are thinking about these one-stop kiosks, multi-agency kiosks with bills from across a local government and a utility?
Sure. I would say it definitely has advantages. Whether you're doing this from a lens of increased customer convenience, or if you're doing this as cost control, both of them are valid reasons to pursue this. And I think this is one of those, we hear a lot of the win-win situation or the scenario, but this is one that, you can definitely see the value in. We never looked at if you might feel pressure from internal staff about, possibly, you're outsourcing or taking away jobs. We never approached it from that perspective. This has always been kind of an additional benefit. We never looked at kiosks as a replacement for a staff member, but an additional way to serve a customer. And the kiosk does for us is it takes away that routine, common, low-level routine work item that they have to do, and allows it to be automated. And it takes up a lot of that free time, and it allows the agent to focus on more complex, more value-added work that is what customers, a lot of customers will really need in order to be successful or would appreciate when it comes to reviewing their account.
Great. All right. Well, I see we already have some questions from the audience. Everybody who's on the line, keep them coming. We'll start getting to these now. So let me pull this up. Okay. One question is, you mentioned cash and checks for the kiosk. What about handling money orders, or if scan capabilities are needed?
We do not offer money. We don't have money orders on the current kiosk that we have, because we have the check receptor that we have scans the check and sends it back. So that works for a check. It doesn't work for a money order. Money order, we would have to actually keep the money order itself. We had tried that on a previous generation of kiosks that we had. It was not that successful, and we didn't get that many payments through money order. So it wasn't something we saw as being critical moving forward.
Next question. How many locations did you redeploy of your kiosks?
So we had, since this was our third generation, a lot of them had already been hardwired into locations of where customers were familiar with where they were. So they were there was a lot of them that were already set. I would have to go back, but I think we've relocated about 4 in total, moved them from areas that were receiving much less traffic and those that were moving to areas that would receive much more traffic. So, and sometimes, we do get notified that we do need to move a location just because the store itself is closing. I think that's happened twice, but that was one of the opportunities we saw, that we could move it to a location that would get better traffic.
Great. Okay, we have a couple of questions about cash. I'm going to combine them if that's okay. So how do you retrieve the cash from the kiosk and how often? And follow-up question from a different person is, what is the annual cost for your courier service, if you're comfortable answering that?
The cost of the courier service, it's a city contract. I would have to go back and get that information. I don't have it at the top of my head. The courier service will pick up every single day, Monday through Friday, and then it doesn't pick up on Saturday or Sundays. So 5 days a week we do pick up.
Yeah, and as you mentioned before, with the multi-agency kiosks, you'll share that cost with any other payment type or department that you have on the kiosk as well, which is another operational efficiency. So with those multi-agency payment options, is each customer's payment set up to direct the payment into their account, or do you have to settle or journal to the correct account?
So right now it looks like that, if they're entering the information correctly, then it will settle to the right account. If they're, and you have human error in here. So if a customer enters something incorrectly or doesn't, follow the proper prompt, it's very rare that we have that now, but we do have the capability of moving those items around. It's just extremely rare.
And for the one-stop kiosks, I'm not sure if this was the nature of the question, but for instance, if someone is going to pay their water bill at the same time that they're going to pay a business tax, it's actually separate workflows. So, they start on the screen and they select which one they want to pay, and then that will automatically be routed to that account. And if they want to pay the water bill, then they just, do that one as well separately. Feel free, audience member, if you have follow-up, if we didn't answer that, feel free to ask some more follow-up questions. Okay, what is the advantage of the prepayment service?
So advantage of prepayment, there's a couple things. One is it benefits the customer in that they have more control over their usage. At least that's what the feedback we had from a pilot program. They have more control of their usage. It prevents them from rolling up excessive amounts of debt. And, once you get disconnected, there's fees on top of that. And there's usually other items that you have to pay to become current. You don't have to do that if you're disconnected with prepayment. If your account runs out, you can put any amount back on. I think it's $1 minimum that we have, and your service can go on. So there are some anecdotal information that we have, like customers who we used to have a cab driver who every night after their shift would go to the kiosk and deposit their tips to keep their services on. But in addition to that, for those that have power prepay accounts, we don't require security deposits. So for those that are concerned about customers getting into locations, there's kind of a emphasis now on affordability, a lot of with some of our recent economic issues. It allows us to be able to not require a deposit because we're not allowing the customer to run up excessive debt if they choose that option. And we would never put someone into a prepaid program. We would never mandate that. It is an option.
Okay, we got a follow-up question about the multi-agency. So for multi-payment customers, the financial accounting is debiting the proper water account and tax account, not the customer's account, correct?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that one?
So for people who are paying, taxes and water, the financial accounting is debiting the proper water account and the tax account, not the customer's account, right? And
that I'm not getting too far into it because I'm not that familiar with it, but the payment is going to whatever account they've identified. So
Right, exactly. So if they're paying their water bill, it'll go to their water account. And if they're paying for taxes, that will be routed to their tax account. They're not going to have, their tax payment tied to your record of them and your CIS. Those stay independent.
Yes.
One of the benefits of that is that it doesn't get messy. It's just a totally independent workflow that is just housed on the same machine. But since it's cloud-based and the payments are collected that way, it's just going to the correct account automatically. There's no, nothing you guys have to settle on the back end outside of your own, department. Okay. Another question is, can Citybase help with deciding the best kiosk placements in community locations? And I'll take that one. Yes, we can. And we've certainly done that before. We've done that with clients such as New York City and Detroit Energy. In Detroit, we recently deployed more than 40 kiosks across the entire city, looking at their data, crunching those numbers, seeing where they were getting the most payments from people who were paying in person. And then also actually, went out and recruited those business locations and set up those kiosks for them. So that's certainly a service that we can provide as well. And then, okay, back to you. So what is the, again, if you feel comfortable, what's the average number of transactions that you get per day on the kiosks, would you say?
I haven't checked in a while. I know that annually it's several hundred thousand. Well, yeah, I'm like thinking about the dollar amounts that we get and all that kind of stuff. I would have to go back and double check. We've been in, like I said, we've been in the disconnect moratorium due to COVID. We do from March of 2020 to March of 2022. So we are just now getting back into the disconnection for non-payment. So we've seen a spike. I'd have to go back and I can provide those. I would just have to go back and get those for you.
Do you have an overall, this was a separate question, but related, do you have an overall percentage of people who pay by kiosk versus other payment channel?
I don't have it by the actual percentage of actual, I do it by, I have the information as to have a percentage of payments we receive, but I haven't gone to the level. I know my staff has, I just haven't got it from them, but the percentage of the customer base that actually uses the kiosk. You will find, and we know that the percentage that use it will be lower, but they're more high frequency users.
Great, and we can always follow up. Okay. Were there any ADA compliance challenges for both the inside and outside kiosk unit? Actually, all of your kiosk units are outside, or sorry, inside. Is that right?
Yes. They're all inside, and that was part of our RFP, is that the kiosks had to be ADA compliant. So they are. We do have an individual within the city that also does separate ADA testing. So the kiosks that we have are compliant with ADA.
Yeah, and Citybase actually went through an academic usability study. So of course, making sure that we're meeting ADA requirements, but also, something that you pointed to, Mike, before, is that our workflows are extremely accessible. They're very easy to use. We optimize them for people with vision impairments or low literacy. We have them in both English and Spanish, and just really optimizing for very quick transactions, easy to use for anyone. Big letters, highly visual. So it should be pretty easy for even first-time users to just go ahead and pay in under a minute usually. Okay, let me see. To what extent was there community engagement done during the concept to roll out the latest versions of the kiosk?
So I'll ask community engagement. I'll need to get some clarification meant by that. Were we seeking where, if there were special locations that people would like to have kiosks located? We didn't receive that. We didn't engage with that. Had this been a new deployment where we had not had kiosks before, that would have been something that we would have done. But seeing as we've had kiosks in place 10 years prior, just very different, vendors, this was really just a replacement of technology from our end and an upgrade of technology. So we were able to kind of, it was already baked into what the community knew we offered, and it was just us rolling those
Do you guys still have lobby hours? Do you still open your lobbies and accept payments via cashier?
We do. We still have lobby hours. I believe we're 8 to 4:30 right now. If customers do come in to make payments, we do provide them information about how they could possibly save time by paying at a kiosk. We did have prior to our first year that we were out, generally our largest day of lobby traffic is the day after Labor Day. And we were able to we dedicated a staff member to be in the lobby to direct people just to come make a payment to use our kiosk. And we were able to take 364 payments in that kiosk just that one day. So.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that you're, as you mentioned, you're not using the kiosk to replace your staff by any means. You're using it as an additional service and additional convenience for customers, but still have that person-to-person interaction, particularly if someone has, more questions than just, oh, I just want to make a quick payment, letting your staff really do their job and providing that customer benefit. Okay, well, I think that's all the time that we have. I want to let you, if you have any additional comments or something that we didn't address, no worries if not. I think you addressed a lot.
Well, not to sound like I'm pandering, because I'm not, but when we did our reference checks, one of the things that really sealed us for Citybase was the previous, the glowing reviews that other clients gave us when we did reference checks before we made our final decision. And the ability, and from personal experience, how much Citybase will partner with you and to go above and beyond to make sure that you're satisfied. It's just been a great relationship for us.
Well, thank you so much. We love to hear that. And obviously you guys have been a great partner as well. And, just thank you for all of your partnership over the years. And thank you everybody who attended. If we didn't get your questions answered, we will follow up with you to get those to you. And then I also just want to note, if you have enjoyed this talk and you're interested in learning more from maybe a different Citybase client, you can view our last webinar on demand at go.thecitybase.com/on-demand. We had a couple of customer service leaders from City Utilities of Springfield, different use case than Tacoma, which was very interesting. So feel free to check that out as well. But thank you again, everyone who joined, and Mike, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks. Bye, everyone.